This is Ed White, All-Pro Offensive Lineman in the NFL, and you're listening to The Grueling Truth.
Welcome to The Grueling Truth Show, The Real Deal. I'm your host, Josh Benjamin. This week we are doing a little bit different of a topic, and it has to deal with sports, but it's going to be on actually the playing surface and turf science and those aspects. Before I get to that, though, check out our website at www.thegruelingtruth.net. We're also on Spreaker, Stitcher, Google Music, iTunes, and now iHeartRadio with the search phrase Grueling Truth to listen to our show anytime you'd like. With me tonight, I have a good friend of mine. His name is Sean Rogers. He is in the turf science field, and I'm going to kind of welcome him and also let him kind of take over and discuss his business that he has. Sean, welcome.
Thank you, Josh. We do a lot of sports fields, team all sports in the Cincinnati areas where we're based out of, but we travel right around 2 hours to 3 hours away from that central location in Cincinnati. And a lot of what we do is baseball fields, some football fields and soccer fields that are still natural grass, since everybody seems to like synthetic turf now. So it's a lot of what we do, all different sports fields.
Awesome. I don't know how long you've been doing this. Actually, I should have asked you that question before this, but, what are some basic things for any surface that you do, football, basketball, baseball, et cetera, wherever you're doing these? What are some kind of basic things that you have to do to maintain a great surface?
The biggest thing is daily maintenance of the actual field. So at the end of the day on a baseball field per se is filling all your holes back in, basically putting the field back to bed just like you'd make your bed at night, getting everything closed back up. That way if you do have a substantial rain overnight or anything like that, you don't have big water puddles sitting on the field the next day. And then as far as like a football field or anything like that goes, you kind of want to repair any big chunks out of the turf, any turf damage that occurred. But obviously some holes are unrepairable just by throwing the piece of sod that came out back in. And then also a lot of what daily practices to do during a football, soccer season, something like that is starting at the end of August, we teach a lot of the schools to throw grass seed once a week on the field, especially down the middle.
So let me ask you, how long have you been doing this?
I've been doing in sports fields and landscaping and all that since I was 12 years old, so now 18 years.
Wow, you're an old guy. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm the same age as you, so I'm old as well. But the thing I want to talk about right now is you talked about doing different high school fields, and I'm sure you've seen some pretty rough structures within the surface. What's probably been your biggest project or biggest, I don't know what to call it, biggest dip, I guess, in some surface that you've encountered?
The biggest thing is just smooth soil interfaces on baseball fields. Basically the edge is what we're talking about, where the grass and dirt meet. A lot of people don't realize that as that lip builds up, you have to remove that lip. You can't just keep adding dirt on top of it, because then it becomes unsafe for players where they can trip and fall, or a ground ball come through an infield on a baseball field, hits that lip and hits somebody in the face or something like that. So that's the biggest challenge and biggest dip we have, is dealing with those. And the biggest one that we've dealt with is at Pastime Park, which I'm sure you know of in Indiana. They had a lip that was 4 feet high that went back about 25 feet and then dropped down.
Wow, that's very unsafe for players. Jeez. Yeah, that sounds like a pretty big problem there. That's definitely unsafe for anybody participating in those sports. What would you say would be one of your best looking surfaces after you're finished? Like whether it's a high school or college, whatever you deal with. What's been your pride and joy, or maybe it's multiple ones, but kind of touch on those for a second.
Our biggest surfaces that we do is Oak Hills High School. We do all their fields, and their football field, according to Darren Daly of the Cincinnati Bengals, is the best natural grass high school surface in Cincinnati area.
Wow, that's a high compliment when a pro franchise compliments your work. So Oak Hills High School. What about some others? And you said was that just baseball and softball, or was that football?
No, we do their practice football fields. They have multiple practice football fields actually. Their baseball field, softball field, and the soccer field. Which their soccer field is all sand-based field, so it's harder to maintain for us and for them to keep the daily requirements of them with watering and cutting the grass twice a week and everything like that.
So you do multiple fields at this same campus. How many people do you have on each playing surface working to make this the best possible playing surface?
It's usually just me and another guy. Sometimes we'll have a third guy in helping, but that way I kind of control things better if I'm there, and then I can teach them the things to look for, problem areas to look for. That way we can stay on top of these fields better.
Now, one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about, the science around turf is so that listeners out there that are interested in this type of field, no pun intended, but that want to be a part of this, whether, they're out of the game, whether, their coaching isn't for them or managing, and they want to, give back to what seriously their playing surface. For people out there that are listening that are interested in this, which hopefully a lot of them are, what advice do you give to them, starting out?
Starting out, don't try to go too big, too fast. I mean, we're steady, two-man operation basically. I have a landscape company, so I can pull employees over from my landscape company to help me when needed. But don't try to grow too fast. We grew this business from about $300,000 to $600,000 actually in 1 year in time since I took it over, and we're on pace to even go higher than that this year just with the two guys. But the biggest thing when you're trying to get into something like this is don't try to overextend yourself and do too many different things. You got to be good at one thing and focus in on that one thing. That's why people ask us if we can do synthetic. Yeah, anybody can sew carpet together and lay carpet down on top of, leveled rock, but I mean, who wants to just do that all their life?
Sure, absolutely. You said you went from $300,000 to $600,000 in 1 year. On the average, how many fields do you touch per week?
Per week, I mean, in the springtime, we'll touch at least 5 different surfaces minimum a week. That's a 5-day work week. Now, if I work on a Saturday or Sunday, it can be more. Sometimes we can do 2 fields in 1 day at one school. So, but our biggest busy time, typically what we want to do in the spring is any kind of seeding work on football fields, soccer fields, and we try to stay away from baseball fields, but inevitably we have to because they'll play fall ball. But we really want to do all baseball-type fields, softball fields in the fall versus in the spring when they're not playing, so it's easier for us to get in there. We don't have to work around the schedule.
So you go by pretty much seasonal when it comes to those different surfaces, it sounds like. What surface do you maintain the most or fix the most?
Our biggest part of our business is fertilization and weed control. So, I mean, those are the surfaces we see the most because we see them every 6 to 8 weeks.
Okay.
So,
just for the listeners out there, I do apologize. We are in a lobby doing this show, so. But got a bunch of guys back there excited. We're at a softball tournament this weekend up in Columbus, Ohio, and we have a lot of guys in here ready to hit the hay per se and get ready to play in the morning. Sean, what are some tools that you normally use on a daily basis that would be there for a beginner to learn or use?
The biggest tool, would be probably our sod cutter. Have a sod cutter when you're doing any kind of soil interface work. That way you can clear the sod off, because once you clear the sod off, you can actually see how much the grade is off on a baseball field or anything like that. But most of our equipment is really pricey. As far as, a tractor, you're running about $30,000. Then you add on one of our implements, which could be $8,000 for a form on reveal that we use. And then, our top dressing unit, just the top dresser by itself, brand new, is $26,000. So those are all expensive tools to come by, but also you got to charge accordingly to make up for the cost of them. So, But the biggest thing would be to have is a sod cutter to cut all your soil interfaces down. That way you can see. And then something you can use to actually loosen that soil up to help move it would be a tiller. But we don't really like the till surfaces because you don't want to loosen all the soil up. You want to try to keep it as firm as possible, or else when it does rain, then it's going to absorb a lot of the water versus shed the water off like we want it to.
Okay, so, talking about this whole situation with Turf Science and yourself, what are some terms or different lingo that you use on a daily basis, maybe, beginners out there that may not know?
One of them would be a soil interface. A lot of people don't know what that is. When we talk about that, some things like top dressing, some people don't understand what that really is and what it entails. Basically, we're adding soil across the top of grass surfaces typically, where we're building up the soil and then we can smooth it out that way without having to tear up turf and damage it. We can add soil in different areas and still have the turf grow through it. Some of the other things that we do, as far as baseball fields, I don't really know that much other things that we say. Kind of just wave my hand around usually when we're working because my guy can't hear me over the tractor, and he's usually got headphones in, so if he sees my hand waving around, he knows to come look at something. So
sure. That's funny. You got your own little batting signals you have from the third base coach there getting to your guys. This has all been very informational. If you were to talk to someone that's seriously considering jumping into this field, no pun intended again, but that is really wanting to engage in this, what kind of advice do you give those people that are listening out there?
Before you jump into it, I'd try to find a company like mine, or there's other companies. We're the premier one in Cincinnati. There's a couple in Dayton, Columbus, and all over. But try to find someone that you can work for, kind of learn from. But like with my company, we have a non-compete. So if you worked for us, you couldn't work for the same kind of company for 5 years because the old owner ran into that when Brickman Group. He left the company, Team All Sports, and went to Brickman Group, and they tried to hire him to do sports fields, and he wasn't allowed to.
Is that like a confidentiality thing of what you do as compared to another business, or how's that work?
This is a non-compete. Basically, when you work for us, you can't go do work in the same field for at least 5 years. That way, because a lot of my employees know our numbers, know all of our customers, and they talk to them firsthand, so it's kind of one of those things. You don't want them just because they knew them from working for us, starting their own thing, and then they just take all your customers right from you.
Okay, I see. That makes sense. And really, I think maybe some other types of fields of study or professions may want to take that into consideration because of those secretive, not necessarily secretive, but personal things to the business that no one else really needs to know, especially a competitor. If you don't mind me asking, what would be the average salary or hourly rate that a person maybe working for you would make, and maybe even yourself, if you don't mind?
Most of the guys that work for me make $15 an hour. Kind of myself, I just kind of pay myself $55,000 a year, but obviously I have owner distributions and everything else I do just for tax purposes, because when you do start a business, that's the biggest thing, is a lot of people don't realize all the taxes that are involved. When you're an employee, you get your check, at the end of the day, but you don't think, whatever taxes came out of your check, I'm paying those taxes plus I'm adding on. I'm paying basically that same amount of taxes myself.
So along with those hourly wages and salaries that you're talking about, what is the average hours per week? I know that varies with season because you probably do more in the spring and summer than you do in the winter season. What are the average hours?
Sometimes we usually start at 7 o'clock in the morning, but we'll, depending on where the job's at, sometimes we'll start at 5:30 in the morning to drive there. That way we get there at a decent time. If we're going an hour and a half, 2 hours away, we'll start earlier. But typically we'll work 50 hours a week during the week. So, that's typical. It's 10-hour days, 5 days a week. And the guy that works for me knows he's going to work long hours, but at the same time, when the morning starts, he might work for 3 or 4 hours, and then for the next 3 or 4 hours, he's basically sitting there watching me work, and then when I do one of my hand signals or something like that, he comes over, takes a look at it. But, I mean.
Okay. Well, along with that, I just thought of this. Do you train your own workers? Do they come into your business already knowing some things? How does that work for your specific business, if you don't mind me asking that either?
I mean, a lot of it you have to train. I mean, a lot of it, too, is a feel thing. I mean, you have to have a kind of an eye for it when you're trying to level something out, smooth something out by eye, because we have a laser grader machine that we use. It's a big box blade. It's 6 foot. So, I mean, I can set that thing up to where you can just drive it around and make it smooth, and it takes no skill involved to it. But a lot of the people won't pay for that service, so we kind of have to do it by eye and feel, from the tractor, from the seat of the tractor. So it's kind of hard to teach that. It's one of those things. I've been doing it for so long, and I've ran all different kinds of equipment that I know what's level and what's not. And the big thing with the rake, too, is trying to rake something smooth. A lot of people struggle with that. So it's one of those things, you kind of, over time, you'll pick it up and get the feel for it.
It sounds like to me, I know you've been doing this for about 2/3 of your life, but with those people coming into your company, or maybe other companies similar to yours, just those small things are pretty crucial, and they may think they know, but they may not have any idea when it comes to, like you said, raking and leveling and things like that. So all very, very small things, listeners, but very important, because I've seen pictures of what Sean's work is, and it looks excellent. He's also done the softball complexes that my mother-in-law is the general manager for, in Cincinnati, Ohio, and they're very, very excellent when he's finished with those. And also to add to that, he told me, and he may have said this earlier, but he coaches up those people that are a part of those campuses, high school-wise, when it comes to maintaining those fields, because he's not going to be there all the time. He gets those set up. Correct me if I'm wrong, Sean. You get those set up, you get those nice, and you kind of just hand them off to those people. You come back, obviously, and check on things and give some more advice and things like that. But you hand those off, and especially the sports complexes that my mother-in-law is general manager for, they have different crews that go along and try to make sure those stay as good as what Sean expects. And it's not an easy task. It's a lot of time that I've seen, and a lot of effort. And some things come easier to others than. But this is a lot of manual labor, and I know that for a fact, because I helped Sean out a few times, and I'm glad being a teacher right now. So, but Sean, kind of wrap this up here. We've talked about beginners and people listening out there for us and getting that advice. Is there anything else you want to tell the audience about your position or anything within your job?
I mean, along the lines of what you were saying about basically handing off the fields. I mean, it's kind of part of our name, Team All Sports. The team, obviously, together, everyone achieves more. So basically what we're looking for is when we get done with the field, we're going to tell you what needs to be done, how it should be done. And at the end of the day, it comes down to if you do it or not. And then that also leads back into the next year. I mean, if you're going to have us come back, and it's just as bad as it was the year before when before we'd fixed it for you, it's just going to cost you the same amount of money. So, for instance, the biggest one is Milford High School. We did their field the one season for them. They spent about $8,000 on it, and they had to use maybe 3 or 4 bags of Rapid Dry the whole entire baseball season. And we came back the next year, added a little bit of dirt to it, and basically all we did was cut edges off that we didn't cut the year before and sodded them back, so they had the true lines around their infield and down their foul line. So, I mean, that's the biggest thing is when we tell you, this is the way things need to be done, it's kind of one of those things. We're not just telling you that just to blow smoke at you. We're trying to help you save money at the end of the day by doing those things.
Absolutely. Yeah. Anyone out there listening that's involved with this already or get ready to get involved or maybe in the near future, take some notes. Sean Rogers, I'm sitting here with, has done a great job of giving some multiple angles of his job and how his daily work is is advertised when he's around, or even his workers, and kind of the whole aspect within these last 21, 22 minutes of that turf science field. And so, Sean, thanks for coming and doing a good job of explaining that. Listeners out there, just a reminder to check out our website, thegruelingtruth.net. You can find us on Stitcher, Spreaker, Google Music, iTunes, and now iHeartRadio using the search phrase The Grueling Truth. You can also follow yours truly on Twitter with the handle at CoachJB4, and also if you search Josh Benjamin on the Facebook app there, I'll be there right there for you to follow as well. For my guest, Sean Rogers, this is The Real Deal on The Grueling Truth. Thanks for listening to The Grueling Truth, Real Deal Show. Until next time, be real with what you say.